We started calling the show The Hangover, Derek, just because it felt like an apt name for the morning after approach. But after after the weekends that have the Europe games, I truly do feel hungover on Mondays. I haven't had a drink in 5.5 years, but these are the days I feel most hungover. And so the name feels more appropriate than ever during this like 4 week stretch where we have the Europe games to kick us off on Sundays.
The Europe games are tough, man. And like they're tough as a West Coaster, but honestly, it's not the early wake up for me. Like the 6:30, I'm usually up around that time anyway, but we've talked about this. It's the 16-hour day that when you get to the end of it, you're just like, you've been brain on for 16 hours. You got to do a little show at the end. It's a lot. And then especially when you get a Sunday night game like that, that kind of has you wired and kind of tuned in. It was a long day.
I've been doing this for so long, right? So this I've been doing this for like 15 years. I still don't know how to do it. Like there's so much of me that while watching the Europe game wants to be like, I'll casually watch this. It'll be on, I'll be having coffee, I'll take the dog out, whatever. And then immediately when Vikings Browns starts yesterday, I'm taking notes on every single play that happens. Like I still haven't figured out how to approach watching an NFL game and figuring out what matters and what doesn't from it, even though I've been doing this for a decade and a half. And so what happens is it turns into 16 straight hours of just taking notes the entire time, when in reality, I probably don't have to do it that way. At some point, I will become better at this job.
Well, it's also like you tell yourself you don't need to care about Vikings Browns because you don't really. But then you see like the weird little play where they put Justin Jefferson in the backfield, and you're like,
It's exactly
this is
right.
actually kind of fun.
It's exactly
You
right.
do that
I'm
for
just
four quarters.
sitting there tic-tacking away about Jalen Nailor insert play actions in the first drive of the game. And so it's fun. But I think that, again, the hangover shows become a little bit more aptly named when we have those days the day before. But got three good ones to get into today, a lot to talk about. We're going to hit the Sunday night game like we mentioned on yesterday's recap show. We're going to talk Lions-Bengals, and then we're also going to dig into Giants-Saints. The New Orleans Saints has become the team of the weekly hangover show, and it's actually kind of fun. I've enjoyed like our little Saints visit that we get to do here every single Monday. I'm sure they will do something at some point that gets them entry into the actual recap show. And again, we said this last night. If we didn't have so many other WTF moments coming out of week 5, the Giants performance might have been in there. And so this is probably the closest that the Saints got over our first 5 weeks of the season. Let's start with the Sunday night game. Let's just do it. Let's do it this way. We talked about the Sunday night game a little bit last night. When you went back and you actually watched this in detail and were really studying it, what were the things that you caught on rewatch that you think were most important that you weren't able to catch in real time?
I mean, I guess it kind of depends on which side of the ball we want to start with. I would say defensively.
That's you choose your own adventure, buddy.
I would say on the side of Patriots defense versus Bills offense, I thought a number of things stood out to me. I thought there were a number of really good moments from the Patriots in run defense. I think their D-line got moved off of the ball a little bit, but like the linebackers, especially Jelani Tavai, actually had like a really, really good game. And so I thought that was more impressive as I went back and watched it. I also thought New England did a really good job for the most part of keeping a roof on stuff, and we're going to make Josh Allen hold on to the ball or take a lot of the underneath stuff. And I think at a certain point, he got pretty antsy with that and started making a few mistakes. And I think the interception that he throws a little bit later in the red zone where Shakir is kind of cutting across the middle, that one also was like a weird interception in that I think Josh Allen kind of throws that as if he expects Shakir to run back a little bit towards the line of scrimmage and like get in front of that ball. But there's a trailing defender and Shakir doesn't really feel it. Defender is the one who undercuts it, picks it off. It just felt like Buffalo never quite got into the rhythm that they wanted to, because even a lot of the chunk plays they had early, it was Josh Allen making some sort of crazy play outside of the pocket. It was the flea flicker that they hit down the left side. It was a lot of like Josh Allen save us or these one or two designery plays. Even like the Curtis Samuel touchdown they hit was very designery. Like they just didn't feel like they had as much rhythm as this offense typically does.
Yeah, and then also you throw in the turnovers as well. You have the
Yeah.
2 fumbles early in the game, which torpedo drives, and then just, little tiny moments that when they're down 3-0 in the red zone, Josh keeps that ball on what should have probably been a give to Shakir at 9:55 in the second quarter. They're forced to kick a field goal there. He takes a sack in late in the second quarter. It's like a little overload look from the Pats with Landry coming around as a looper. He gets a little panicky in the pocket.
And
And
that
so
was
just
that to me was like great game planning from New England in the sense that Buffalo, more than any other team, loves to push the back out a little bit from the backfield. to get like a read on like, okay, is it man coverage, or we just want to create
Mhm.
a little space. But if he's out there, he's not going to be in the backfield protecting. And so if you send 4 bodies to that side, like you said, you're going to be able to throw a loop and one guy's going to get free.
Yeah, I felt like, New England's or the Buffalo's offense overall just felt a little bit unsettled over the
Mhm.
course of the game, and it felt a little bit up and down where they're relying more on splash plays than this offense typically has. I mean, just think about how methodical they've felt for the most part over the first 4 weeks of the season. They haven't been that explosive, but they've been ruthlessly efficient. And they were still pretty efficient in this game. I think the turnovers ultimately do them in, but they had a couple of those less clean moments than we've seen so far this year from the Buffalo Bills offense. And then I think the biggest swing on that side of the ball in the entire game is what happens right before that interception that you were just talking about. So they're down 13-10 at that point, and they have an OPI on Khalil Shakir on what would have been a 3rd and 1, like inside the 5-yard line. It goes back to 2nd and 13. And that's when Marcus Jones picks that ball off. It's a great play by Marcus Jones in man coverage, by the way. I mean, it's a good recovery by him. It's a great play on the ball by him. And so, again, I think that Buffalo shot themselves in the foot a little bit with a few of those mistakes, but New England deserves some credit for, again, how unsettled they made this offense feel in multiple moments over the course of the game.
Yeah, and a lot of that was they played a lot of man coverage in this game. Like they played almost 40% man coverage,
Mhm.
which on one hand against Josh Allen can be scary if he decides to run around the way that he can, but it's also, we've talked about this before for years with the Buffalo Bills. They don't have that many like we can just beat you one-on-one receivers. And if you feel
Challenge
good
these
about,
guys.
yes, challenge them. If you feel good about Christian Gonzalez is going to blank this guy 80% of the time. Okay, then you take the 1-5 losses that you take. Same with Carlton Davis and all those guys. Again, Marcus Jones played a good game. And I do think the safeties are a little bit athletically limited, but I think in coverage actually do a pretty good job of being where they need to be, helping these guys squeeze routes and man coverage as like these, secondary over the top guys. So I think they did a really good job of, again, outside of 1 or 2 insane scramble plays from Josh Allen, not giving them the explosives they wanted, really making them be methodical, doing just enough in run defense to not let them have that feel that they usually have.
The only real explosives they had in the passing game, I mean, you can kind of list them on one hand. They had the flea flicker where he takes the over route instead of the clear out, which having a secondary throw on your flea flicker as like when you're trying to run it to one side of the field, I don't think I've seen that route get accessed on a flea flicker before, where it's almost like a check down, but it's 25 yards down the field. So they hit that for a chunk. And then it was honestly very similar. The 2 bigger chunks they hit against man coverage in this game, they're just big crossers coming all the way left to right. And even with good coverage, if you have enough time on those throws and an entire side of the field is bled out, you can put that ball into space and give your guy a chance. That was the Josh Palmer catch against man coverage, where Christian Gonzalez is in his hip pocket that entire way. But if you have enough time for Josh Allen to sit there and bounce in the pocket and you can throw it 5 yards away from Christian Gonzalez, you're able to give your guy a chance in those moments. But there were only a few of those over the course of the entire game. And then there was one at Kincaid that I actually thought was a really nice play by Kincaid. It was a 2nd and 12 to start the second quarter. And he just kind of finds space on like a crossing route after coming in motion. And Allen hits him for a chunk there. But those were really the only big explosive plays in the passing game that the Patriots had the entire day.
Yeah, it was like a really impressive performance for them. Like that was what you want this Patriots defense to look like. Where again, because you play so much man coverage, you're going to lose a couple of times, but the front looked good. You did enough in run defense, and you make 1 or 2 plays with the turnovers, and that's how you win an ugly game.
Let's talk about the other side of the ball. After you took a deeper look at what Drake May and this offense did against Buffalo, anything you noticed on the rewatch that was not readily apparent to you when you watched it in real time? Or anything that
I
was reinforced?
So I would say a couple of things were reinforced. One, we talked about this a little bit. The chemistry between Josh Allen, or sorry, he plays a lot like Josh Allen, so I already have that in my mind. And we're talking about Stephon Diggs. The chemistry between Drake May and Stephon Diggs it's really beautiful to watch. And it's like there's still a little bit of work in progress. Like very early in the game, on one of the I think 3rd and 3s, Drake May is they're seeing cover 2, which actually the Bills played a lot of Tampa 2 early in this game. And
Mhm.
Diggs is running one of those slant routes from the right side. He's trying to fit into that window between the flat defender and that first hook defender. May tries to put it on his back shoulder so he can keep him away from the hook defender. Diggs is a little late to see it, doesn't hang on to it. But as the rest of the game went on, Diggs did such a good job of like scramble drill. Okay, I know where I need to spin out and go find space. Or sitting in zones later in the game, he did a good job of it. There was another play later in the game where Diggs is running like a corner route, sail route on the left side against Tampa 2, and he knows that May is going to throw the ball a little bit short and a little bit low so that the safety over the top can't drive down on it, and he's comfortable going and getting that. So, like, just the chemistry between those two is really cool because I think going in, I thought Diggs was just going to be the like, oh, they have him to beat one-on-one coverage every now and then, and that's going to be his thing. But they've really done a good job of just chemistry-wise finding space on the field, and then Diggs after the catch was really good in this game. I think I kind of didn't quite appreciate how good he was after the catch until I rewatched it.
I think there were 2 drives that really stood out to me for New England. They had a drive to go up 13-10, where it was just chunk play, chunk play, chunk play. He hits a whole shot to Diggs off play action for 16 yards. And you know what else really jumped out to me in this game? And this play, I think, was an example of it. There were plenty of them. On this play, Pop Douglas is coming in like a little bit of a motion, and Drake turns and fakes a handoff to Pop Douglas going right to left. And Pop drifts out into the flat on the play, and then Travion Henderson was offset to the left side, and he immediately runs a route to the left side, but with a little bit of depth. And that to me is a really good example of, all right, we have a flat controller. We have somebody kind of holding down the hook defender on that side with the back, and then you have Diggs running that corner out into the hole shot area, and the flat defender is getting yanked down toward that flat route a little bit, and so it gives him the space to make that throw. The spacing, knowing they were playing just the spacing in general with some of the route distribution, but when you watch it manifest against a zone-heavy team, it's just really good details. Like, you just saw that throughout the game. Like, you watch if you pause it at the top of his drop and you look at where the routes are distributed, knowing you're playing against a zone-based team, on so many of these plays, it's like, this is you're putting a guy in conflict. You're like, you are
Mhm.
making this hard on each of these zone defenders, and I just think it again was a reminder, uh, after watching this offense last week, I think you notice how good some of the little details are, and I think that showed up a lot in this game. So that's a 16-yard gain to Diggs. Next play, they did this a lot, and I actually really like it as an idea, but again, especially against a zone-based team, they'll be in a split back look with Ramondre and Travion Henderson on either side of Drake May. They'll both chip immediately, and then they'll both release. And the timing of it is you can get, again, just tell it's very well ironed out where the chips really help with the pass protection. And then as they release, as Drake is essentially hitting the back of his drop, they're yanking defenders down and creating space for him to make some of these throws. And so that happens right after the Diggs chunk play, and Drake hits Booty on like a comeback for 16 yards. And then that drive ends with the scramble drill throw to Diggs, and then it's a touchdown for Ramondre. That's 13-10. And then the other one that really jumped out to me, the drive essentially put him up 20-10. Drake buys time on third down outside the pocket, finds Diggs working the sideline for 3rd and 7, flips it to Diggs on 3rd and 3 against the blitz, and then hits a chunk play to Hunter Henry out of another one of those split back looks for 24 yards over the middle of the field. And that play was another really good example. There were 2 plays in this game where I'm watching Will Campbell hold up in pass protection against Bosa to give Drake that time. And that play was a perfect example. And then on they score the touchdown there with Ramondre on the little flip. Hunter Henry is great in space on that touchdown to Ramondre Stevenson. Hunter Henry was awesome in this game as both a receiver and a blocker. And so, yeah, I hope you can hear it in my voice, like how excited I am to watch the Patriots right now because of how well designed the details of it and how well the individual players are kind of shining through. I did not anticipate having this experience, even if we were optimistic about what the Patriots offense could look like.
Me neither, especially because like I think coming in, a lot of some more of the excitement would have been like, oh, maybe Kyle Williams does something, maybe Travion Henderson really pops, and like Henderson has been okay, but like neither of those guys have done anything. It's been Kayshon Boutte being better than we thought, Stephon Diggs turning back the clock. I guess the Hunter Henry of it all is not surprising. He was kind of Drake May's favorite guy last year, and then the
But
offensive
even
line
him he's even playing better than I
he
expected.
is.
I mean, even if he was Drake May's guys last year, I did not anticipate him impacting games for a real NFL offense the way he is doing right now.
Especially because the play that you mentioned where he catches that like 24-yarder over the middle, he takes a shot trying to make that catch. And that was not like, Drake May threw a hospital ball. That was just really tough. That's the one play I really want to talk about. So they're running dagger there with Henry running like the deep kind of seam kind of route. And usually on dagger, you want to let that guy be the clear out and then you throw the dig behind it. But the dig gets covered and May kind of holds his eyes there, seeing all the second level defenders kind of push over it. Now, usually if you're going to throw that, like the seam dagger clear out route late, you're going to throw it way over the top and just let a guy run under it, whatever. Drake May goes, I can fit this under the safeties and just rips it in between like that. You just don't see that ball put there very often. And that to me was like okay, if he can access that area of the field like that, he's a little bit different than some of these other guys.
Yeah, and if you guys wanna go back and watch that play and just see the job Will Campbell does just holding up in pass protection, this game to me, there are multiple examples of what made him such a special player in college. Even with some of the size concerns, the length concerns, he's not an overwhelming athlete. His ability to recover from disadvantageous body positions and just maintain control of a defender throughout the entire play is kinda wild. Like, when you watched it in college, the mirroring ability was really special, even if some of the other stuff maybe had left cause for concern, and you saw that against Bosa multiple times in this game. There was a 2nd and 15 play action crosser to Henry where it was the exact kind of thing. He actually oversets on the initial step off play action and then has to recover and picks up Bosa and does a fantastic job, and then Henry goes up at high points. It's a very nice layered throw from Drake May. It was right before they kicked the field goal to go up 6-3. So just another impressive performance from this Patriots offense, and I think it's really good to point out that whatever your excitement was coming into it, it was probably about the guys they added, like the young pieces that might feel dynamic. And in reality, it's been like this millennial ass group of pass catchers that somehow is carrying this group with Drake May.
It's again, I couldn't have imagined it looking this way, but him just getting a shot to go do what he's got to do. It's been a lot of fun to watch.
It's funny coming into the year, I looked at the over under for the Patriots and I was kind of like, man, that seems a little aggressive
Same.
based on what this team was last year. Like, even if they should be better offensively, this feels like a lot. And I think we talked a lot about this over the summer where you look at some of the numbers from Drake May last year and from this offense. When you consider the environment, it was a miracle. The fact that this was not one of the worst offenses in the NFL. And so, with more help, could they take a big jump? I think that was on the table, but I still think this is even more pronounced than even the most optimistic Patriots believers could have predicted coming into the season. And I'm thoroughly enjoying it. Like, this is a team that feels like they are absolutely going to be in the mix to be a wild card team based on the quality of the offense. And I think that felt a little bit quick for me coming into the season, but I think that they have kind of erased whatever doubts I had about that. I feel pretty comfortable voicing my belief in their ability to get that done and be like a 10-7 wild card team.
Especially after a game like this, because the first 4 weeks of the season, I know they got to 2-2 and all that stuff, but like, it was not a very tough schedule. Like, and so the fact that they were 500 was nice for them where they were at on their trajectory, but it was like, beat a real team. And then they go out and beat what is maybe the best team in football. And so it's like, now, okay, sure, you needed the turnovers, whatever, but they played even though they had a couple of bounces that went their way, this did not feel like a fluky win at all. This felt like a quality team went out, a couple things went their way, and they beat a very, very good football team.
Let's get to our next one here. The Lions take care of business against the Cincinnati Bengals. They win 37-24. I don't really know where else to start with this other than just the total unwatchability of the Cincinnati Bengals offense right now is kind of depressing on like multiple different levels. Zach Taylor comes out this morning, says he's going to maintain play calling, which is not at all surprising. It's always been a very collaborative play calling approach there. I think him being the one to like actually say it into the headset, even if he's not, I don't know what that really changes. But the notable part of this is that he was non-committal to Jake Browning as the starting quarterback for the Bengals moving forward. And I don't blame him at all after going back and watching this. Like, it's hard to justify just rolling with Browning for the rest of the year, considering what they're getting out of him and the struggles that they're experiencing on offense.
Yeah, this to me, I think there are a number of certain particular plays that we can go to. Like, I think accuracy-wise, Jake Browning was just bad in this game. But to me, the biggest, most egregious error was the interception he throws to Alex Anzalone. Because he could have thrown that.
What is that?
He could have thrown that to 3 different defenders. All
Yes.
3 guys were there. Like, I would just and, like, Ancelotti doesn't even really move on the play. He's kinda just hanging out on the hash, and Browning just, like, late in the down kinda turns over to this crosser, and that was the other thing. It's not like this was some predetermined play that he just, I gotta force it in there." It was later in the down, he turns to it, it's triple covered, and he just throws it in there for, like, literally all 3 players could have picked it off, and that to me was, like, it felt for a lot of this game that he was doing just a lot of, "I'm gonna chuck it up and see what happens," but that was the most where it felt like, okay, the dam has broken, and he just does not feel very comfortable reading out the play, which, again, offensive line's bad, they're not running the ball well to put them into down and distances, I get that. But he's not doing anything to help them overcome that, and again, I know he's a backup and most of them can't, but it's just the fact that they're getting absolutely nothing, I think, is tough.
So many of these plays where you're not going to have that many opportunities with your backup quarterback in. You've got to take advantage of the opportunities. And a couple of them, the first interception, like Chase is one on one with Robertson on the outside. Like if
Mhm.
you put that ball in the correct spot, you're going to allow Jamar Chase to go make a play on it. We've seen that exact level of separation and that exact idea turn into positives for the Bengals offense how many times over the last couple years. It's one on one on the outside. Chase is running an outbreaker. It's decent coverage, but if you give him a shot there, he's probably going to be able to make a play on it. It's left inside. It's an interception. The 3rd and 7 shot that he takes on the post to Higgins, if he just leaves that out into the middle of the field, T can go make a play on that. Instead, he leads him further upfield and back outside, and it allows Yasin to make a play on it. Those guys, this is the engine of what your offense is supposed to be. Is these guys, their open is different than other people's, but you still have to put it in enough of a spot to give them a shot on it. And he's just not doing that consistently. The accuracy is poor, the decision making is poor. He feels panicky in the pocket, even when he probably shouldn't. The ball's not coming out on time. It's not going where it should be. And so I just think they're dead in the water. He's not giving them a real shot. I think there are frustrations to be had with the overall structure of the offense and how this thing is being built and some of the things they're trotting out. But right now, the way that he is playing, they seemingly have absolutely no chance on that side of the ball.
And so that's the thing. If he's not going to give your 2 superstars chances to get the shot plays, because again, he was throwing high and behind on a lot of these. Those couple of ones that you mentioned, but there was even a rollout earlier in the game where Higgins is running like a crosser and he throws it like up back and behind him, and it's like you don't even give him a chance. Whereas if you give Higgins a chance most of the time, he can come down with it more than other guys can. So that part of it has been frustrating. And then again, some of the down to down stuff, they just cannot get it open, and I actually do wanna credit Detroit for that. I think they played a really good game on defense for a lot of
Me
that, like,
too.
Alex Anzalone on multiple 3rd and shorts, incredible coverage. Like, there was one where he defends a whip route and goes and gets a hand on it. There was another one to Gesicki was running a speed out to the left, and he forces a tight window on the sideline and then just, like, kinda jostles with Gesicki at the very end to punch it out. Like, he played an awesome game, and then the thing that I thought was cool was they did a really good job of in whenever they wanted to go man coverage, which Detroit still does a decent amount, they would have Branch kind of play over the middle of the field as this like
Mm.
robber, and anytime he saw a shallow, just go and kill the guy underneath. And he did that 3 or 4 times, and it was like, when you know you have Jamar Chase and they want to run him on all these shallows, let's just go get ahead of it and not give them the easy ones. Like it was Browning had his issues by himself, but also Detroit just played a really, really good game.
It was a really good game plan. I think that all
Mhm.
that robber coverage that you're talking about, you're essentially creating de facto double teams in man coverage
Mhm.
because you have that safety as that roaming player playing over the top of everything. And a lot of the reason that you'll want to play, if you play like one hole with like the linebacker as like that kind of roaming player in the middle of the field, oftentimes, or at least sometimes, that's because you don't trust your linebackers in man coverage. Like if they're going to put those guys in a bind, you can take advantage of linebackers in man coverage. I think the gap in coverage between the Lions linebackers and the Bengals linebackers was the most pronounced difference between these two teams in this entire game. I'm so glad that you mentioned it. Like Anzalone had multiple really nice moments. Campbell snuffed out a screen at some point, and the Lions this entire day had anything they wanted in the flat whenever they wanted to have it. And it just you feel it's sometimes you don't notice it when you're watching a game in real time, but then you go back and you rewatch it with this sort of scope and you just feel quality and poor linebacker play in a more obvious way, and that's exactly what it was today. It's just like you just feel the difference in quality between the two groups of linebackers between these teams when you go back and watch what was available to the respective offenses.
It's such a good way to put it because too, like we mentioned, we just talked about how much man coverage Detroit will play and how comfortable they are letting some of their linebackers do that when they need to. The Bengals played 4 snaps of man coverage in this game, and part of that is maybe the DBs, but that's also because they just don't trust their linebackers, especially against guys like Sam Laporta, Jameer Gibbs, like those type of caliber of guys. They just don't trust them. But then when they were in a lot of this zone coverage stuff, you still get Amon-Ra St. Brown in the slot against whatever linebacker you want to pick. A lot of the boot stuff, they did a good job of manipulating the linebackers' eyes. Like they were really abusing them there. And then the other frustration I had with the Bengals defense was we were
All
told
the
all year.
Joseph Osai coverage snaps?
Yes.
Yes, that was frustrating to you?
We were told all year, oh, this thing's going to be simpler and we're just going to let these guys go and play. And then every play, it's Joseph Osai and the other defensive ends in coverage. And I'm like, well, why are we doing that? And every time they were finding Laporta, St. Brown, whoever it was in coverage. I'm just like, man, I just don't understand the plan really defensively for Cincinnati, and then the execution of it really outside of the interior defensive line is pretty tough right now, which actually makes me feel crazy because the biggest complaint I had like a year or two ago with Cincinnati was like, man, everything else about the defense kind of has something, but the interior is just hurt. It's bad. It's all this stuff. Now I kind of feel the opposite, where the interior D line is kind of nice. Everything else outside of Trey Hendrickson is just not up to snuff.
I think the DBs have their moments. Like that DJ Turner pass breakup and man coverage against Amon-Ra St. Brown was a really impressive play. Like I don't think the DBs are like garbage. I think what's happening in zone coverage and some of the underneath
Yeah.
areas like gives this passing game absolutely no shot. And you felt the biggest difference to me, there were two versions of the Lions passing game on Sunday. There was the version when there was no pressure and there was the version when there was pressure. Every time they tried to heat up Jared Goff, or in the moments where the defense actually looked decent, it's because they were heating him up. They were sending some sort of blitz. It was Hendrickson winning quickly against a backup left tackle or against Brock Wright, kind of sliding over and taking care of him on the backside. But when he was not pressured and they were forcing the issue in this game, it was just way too easy. I mean, the numbers are disgusting. Per next gen, on plays where he was not pressured yesterday, Jared Goff 17 of 19 for 229 yards and 3 touchdowns.
That is
It was
insane.
routes on air. Like
Yeah.
when he was not pressured in this game, it was routes on air.
It really was. There were so many moments, again, because when you're trying to drop out defensive ends who that's not their thing, to have them go cover Sam Laporta in the flat, it just doesn't make, like, one of Sam Laporta's touchdowns was because they did exactly that. They dropped the end off and he's just absolutely free. Like, it was just a ridiculous game. I think part of what I was saying with the DBs too, they do actually have the good moments in coverage. They're a bad run defense unit. Like I think the Montgomery touchdown that gets them up 28-3, they run right at Dax Hill, and he just surrenders like 5 yards of space to Sam Laporta. I'm like, if you're not going to go take on blocks against Sam Laporta, you're not going to do it against any tight end.
I'm not here
He's
for the Sam
better.
Laporta
He's
blocking.
better, but come on.
I'm off this. I am
No.
not here for the Sam Laporta blocking slander anymore. He has been so much better
He's
at
been
the point
better.
of attack. I feel like he's actually been a defined positive for them this year in those moments. The Gibbs touchdown, or
The one where he blocks Osai?
yes.
Yeah, okay,
He
that one was good. That
dominates
one was
him
very
at the
good.
point of attack in this
Yes.
game. And so early in his career, and I think it's important to contextualize why this Sam Laporta blocking thing has become a conversation on the show over the last couple of years. Your skepticism of him as a blocker is that for the most part early in his career, to their credit, they did not ask him to shoulder a heavy load at the point of attack. A lot of his blocking assignments are, you are the second tight end in 11 and 12 personnel. You're going to be slicing across the formation. You're going to be blocking guys in space. This is not Tip Ryman, right? This is not John
Brock
Bates
Wright.
or Brock Wright. Like, that's not what Sam Laporta is, and they didn't ask him to do that stuff. This year, I feel like they have done a better job and maybe a more intentional job, or maybe I'm noticing it more, of creating more like 6 and 7 man surfaces where it's going to be like YY looks with him and Wright on the same side. And he's been much more physical and much more potent at the point of attack when being asked to do that this year than I think at any other point in his career. So I think Sam Laporta deserves at least some flowers for the job he has done as a blocker this year.
He definitely does, especially too if we contextualize the player he is. He doesn't need to be Rob Gronkowski or George Kittle for it all to work. He just has to be like speed bump level quality, and he's gotten to at least that. I will
Oh,
give him
I
that.
think he's better than that. I
I
truly
don't
think
know.
he's better than that this year. I think
I
he's
want to
playing
see it
with a
for
little
more
bit
than
more
4 or
sand
5
in his
weeks, I think is
pants.
all. He is. He definitely is.
I
I don't want to take it away from him, but this is like I
Dude,
want to see it
there's
against some really, really good
so many
defenses.
bad blocking tight ends in the
Oh,
NFL.
there are.
There are so many bad ones. The fact that he is as good as he is at this right now, that is a rarity when it comes to NFL tight ends that are at least semi-dangerous receivers. Like a lot of these guys who are good blocking tight ends, they give you nothing as pass catchers. The fact that Sam Laporta is contributing again at the point of attack in the trenches the way that he is this year, I think he deserves a decent amount of credit for that. I don't really have anything else to hit with the Lions. I mean, it's still like for the most part, a lot of the same stuff we're used to with them. Called like a couple well-timed screens in this game. Like the one where they get Penei Sewell out into space was beautiful. Like I love watching a big man, get to do some work in space like that. And then they had a get back one early in the third quarter that to me that was the best example of like the DBs just not
Didn't
being
want it.
overly invested. Like
Yeah.
Geno Stone just gets cooked on that play. And again, nice job by both Laporta and Tesla in space blocking on that screen. And it's a reminder again of this offense. Everyone's chipping in little ways. Everybody. And that's the feel that they've had consistently over the last few years. And I think you're just really reminded of it pretty much every single time you watch this offense in depth. And that's why it's so enjoyable. Like it's the ideas combined with the effort makes this a fun watch every time you turn on the Lions offense.
It's the buy-in. Like we've talked about this a million times with Dan Campbell and all that stuff, but like it's all the X's and O's stuff is cool, but it's the fact that every single person down to the 15th man on the offense is willing to do whatever little thing it takes.
Hard not to start this conversation anywhere else than this. Giants are going to be kicking themselves about this one. I mean, their offense down to down wasn't bad over the course of this game. And I
They had
feel
like the
like,
same success rate as New
yeah,
Orleans.
I think that, their offense down to down was not bad over the course of this game. So that's a good thing to point out, just statistically. And the context of these numbers don't really matter, but the Saints had a 42.5% success rate in this game. The Giants had a 41.5% success rate in this game. The Saints were at 0.09 EPA per play, which is like a solid offense. The Giants were at negative 0.21, which would easily be the worst offense in the NFL. That's it. I mean, the turnovers and the self-inflicted wounds in this game ultimately did the Giants in.
Yeah, they were brutal, and especially because a lot of them were in plus territory. It's not
Yes.
like you know what I mean. Like they were driving and would have put points on the board. There was the one where Demario Davis punches out the fumble. I think it was from Demarius Slayton. He rakes that one out, and then obviously the scoop and score that Scatterbo gives up. And Howard is able to run back. So like those two, especially of course the scoop and score, were just like huge. Those are the points that could have won you the game and probably would have won you the game, and instead end up throwing them away because yeah, just kind of silly little errors. But they really did find ways to move the ball. Like the run game is honestly solid, and part of that is they see fewer 8-man boxes than any other team, and part of that is just who they're playing. Like the Chargers just do that, the Saints just do that. But they're at least taking decent advantage of it at times, and especially have over the last couple of weeks. And so again, they were moving the ball there. Some of the early play action stuff was pretty good, and Dart is an accurate thrower when he's on that stuff, and so they were able to hit some of those. Like they found a mode of offense to work. It's just all the stupid stuff, the self-inflicted errors. And then that doesn't even get to the Dart fumble where nobody touches him. Like just silly, stupid ways to lose this game.
Yeah, I agree. And I wasn't like disappointed with what the offense looked like down to down. I
Mm-mm.
mean, a couple plays where it feels like they're leaving something on the field. I thought, along with the turnovers, to me, one of the biggest swings in the entire game is they're near midfield late in the second quarter. They try to run a flea flicker. Darius Slayton is open on the flea flicker, and Dart just underthrows it. That's fine. But if you're gonna call that on 3rd and 2 from shot territory, I completely support that, by the way. Like, I think that's the right call on 3rd and 2 from about midfield. But then they get to 4th and 2, and they take a delay game and they punt. And I think there are multiple moments in this game. They chose not to go for it on 4th and 1 from midfield earlier in the game. And so the fact that they literally gave away 5 possessions via turnover, and then there were 2 more that they half gave away because they chose not to go for it in those moments, you're talking about 7 possessions. It's hard to win in the NFL that way.
Yeah, like you have some of those mistakes. And then really even at the end when they were kind of giving themselves a chance, it was just like one thing after another. Like there was a late in the fourth quarter, it's a 3rd and 3. Collins is coming over from the left to the right side on like a little shallow, and there's a little bit of traffic, but Dart puts the ball on him around the sticks and it would have been in conversion. He drops it. I think on the following drive, Dart throws a really nice like high corner out to Theo Johnson that one gets dropped and then two gets called back for holding anyway. And then the second interception that Dart throws, where he's trying to throw a slant again to Collins, Collins kind of gives up on the route, and McKinstry is just right there for it. And so that's just one of those things that, like, okay, a backup player for you is kind of making some mistakes and kind of hurting your young quarterback when he's giving you chances. And not like Dart did not play perfect in this game. He had his own fair share of mistakes, but like even in the chance that he was making good plays for them, somebody else was kind of also messing it up. Like it was just I actually came away feeling okay about this offense, assuming they don't give away 5 possessions in the next game.
Yeah, I feel the same way. And then on the other side, I mean, the Saints had their share of mistakes too. They had a lot of negative plays in plus territory, even if they weren't turning the ball over. So there were a lot of drives where they actually had a decent amount of momentum. They're rolling. And then there's a botch play here, a botch play there. There was a negative 4-yard gain on a handoff to Taysom Hill that torpedoed a drive. They botched a draw, like a quarterback draw before a Blake Groupie missed field goal. I still don't know exactly what was supposed to happen on that play, but Rattler gets dumped like 5 yards deep in the backfield, and then they had a false start after that Taysom Hill chunk completion, and they have to settle field goal on that drive. And so not quite as bad as the mistakes that we got from the Giants, but still moments of frustration when you're watching a Saints team that, again, this thing is put together in a way where there's a level of competency here with like the overall offensive ecosystem and infrastructure. And so for them just to kind of stub their toe several times over the course of this game, it's just like, guys, we're so close. We're so close to being like a real NFL offense here, and you're refusing to get out of your own way when you're on like the plus 35-yard line.
I know, like, some of the negative plays were killing me in this game. I do think it was a really good I think it was Kayvon Thibodeau snuffed out the Taysom Hill
He
run. Like,
did.
that was he's been pretty good this year, actually. Like, that was just a really good play by him. With the Saints offense, this was finally like the biggest issue with them is they just couldn't hit on any of the explosives. And they finally were able to hit on that big Shaheed where he looks like he's going to run the deep over, bends it back on the cross around the deep play action. And obviously he's pretty wide open, but Rattler pretty far down the field puts that right on him where he can keep running and just accelerate to the end zone like that. I think if they can just get one of those a game, Rattler and the offensive infrastructure overall does enough on a down to down basis. Like they're a solid run game, and Rattler generally makes good decisions in the 1 to 10 yard area. That if as long as they don't do some of that shoot yourself in the foot when you get into the red zone stuff, like they can again be in that 20-ish point, 24 point range against a lot of teams.
I thought that the very intentional job they did trying to create explosives via heavy personnel in this game was very well done. That Shaheed play that you're talking about, they're in 13 personnel on that play. So they're getting base defense. They send Juwan Johnson on a quick motion from left to right. They make him the number one receiver. And so that essentially, against quarters, just leaves Shaheed one-on-one with Tyler Nubin. And Rashid Shaheed is a scary player if you are backpedaling and he is coming at you full speed. And so Shaheed just kind of sells it inside just for a second. And as soon as Nubin kind of takes that a little bit, that play is over. And so that's one that you win via design and the explosiveness of your pass catchers. And then the Taysom Hill completion to Juwan Johnson, I'm pretty sure like that's 0-4 personnel. Like if you were actually marking it up, because there's no back in the game. It's Taysom Hill at quarterback. Spencer Rattler is lined up out wide, and the other 3 pass catchers are all tight ends. And so you have 0 backs and 4 tight ends in the game, and everybody on that play is wide open. If you didn't want to throw it to Jawan Johnson for a chunk, I'm pretty sure Foster Moreau was running wide open down the middle of the field. And so when you're a team like the Saints and you have a second-year, 6th-round pick quarterback, I think that's what he was, right? 6th-round pick?
Fifth, maybe.
Fifth?
Day 3, it doesn't really matter.
Day 3 is the correct framing. If you have a second-year day 3 quarterback and you are picked to be the worst offense from one of the worst teams in the NFL, you got to find 3 or 4 moments over the course of the game when you can manufacture explosives for yourself. And even in an imperfect performance where they had a few moments of frustration, they found those 2 plays over the course of the game. And so I give a lot of credit to the way that the Saints have gone about this. Like they are not a slog to watch even if, you're going to run into some inconsistencies and some issues here and there.
And again, like you mentioned with the Taysom Hill play, because it's one heavy and also weird personnel, you get a little bit more vanilla coverage from the
Mhm.
defense, and they just run verts, and it puts the outside corner in conflict where he's like, I kind of got to split the difference between the guy running the seam as the number two and the guy on the outside. And Taysom Hill goes, all right, you're too far to the outside. I can just rip this and throw this. Like the design is solid. And I think as the offensive line hopefully comes together, that can help them out a little bit. That's the last thing I want to shout out. I know I'm the Kelvin Banks guy. The first month of the season was up and down for him. Obviously, some of what he did
Rookie
against
tackles.
Bosa was tough. Exactly, just rookie tackle. Like Bosa got him a number of times. The Cardinals game, he got beat a couple of times. The Seahawks front was able to get after him a little bit. This was the best game he's played as a pro. And I think if he can start to find some of that a little bit as the year goes on, especially with some of the other injuries and like right side issues that they've had on this offensive line, I think that could go a long way for this team for sure.
The last sequence I want to talk about to me is just like a very Spencer Rattler sequence.
Mhm.
So it's 2nd and 15 after the penalty. Next play, he eludes a rusher in the pocket, finds I think it was Olave for like a 7-ish yard gain, sets up a 3rd and 8. Just okay, we're on schedule, we're giving ourselves a chance. And then on that 3rd and 8, he buys time outside of the pocket, moves it to his right, and he finds Olave for like a 15-yard chunk. And so that 3-play sequence is like, this is the Spencer Rattler experience. Like, you're going to get a little bit of everything, and there's a decent amount of good to go along with the head scratching.
There really is a decent amount of good. And the last thing I want to say about him, I know we've done a lot of like jokey stuff about him because just weird prospect. This is a stupid Saints team, all that stuff. It really is cool to me how, and I don't want to do like full on psychoanalysis, but just like how mature he's become. Whereas even in college, if something went wrong, he would crash out on his teammates and you could see it on film. He doesn't do any of that now. And it's a lot of like, hey man, it's good. I'm the leader here. Like it's honestly very cool to me to see a player like take that sort of maturity. And you can see it in the way he plays and the way that this team is functioning. Like it's honestly really cool for me to see.
It's super early to have this conversation, but I'm curious your thoughts about this. How well does he need to play for them to get to April next year with a top 5 pick and think, we can maybe go another direction? Like, do you think that's even on the table? As much as it's been a pleasant surprise how adult they have felt on offense, is that probably taking it too far in your mind?
Probably only insofar as like if you have a top 5 pick, you are probably going to get a chance to have a quarterback prospect who has a little bit more to them than maybe Spencer Rattler
Yeah.
does, and like from a height, weight, speed perspective, is going to have more than Spencer Rattler does, and so from that perspective, I would get it. But like I've already said it. He to me is like a top 70, like he's already like a top 24 quarterback right now. And like I know that that's not like a super sexy thing to be, but if you add that on top of like if we get him to play a little bit more, you think about his arm talent, you think about the development he's already made as a pocket manager. I think if they end up to a spot where they lose so many games, they have a top 5 pick, he's probably not going to hold on to the job. But I really would not be surprised if he gets another shot a little bit later in his career to see if he can prove it, because I really do think that he is capable.
I think that's a good place to land, where it's like, okay, even if based on how things are progressing for the Saints and the trajectory they'll likely see over the next couple of years, they'll probably be in position to draft a quarterback, and that probably is the right choice for them in this moment. But that doesn't mean I'm not at least intrigued by what the next 3 or 4 years of Spencer Rattler might look like. I think I'm comfortable landing in that spot.
He's going to get a chance somewhere. If it's New Orleans, if it's not, I don't know, but somebody will give him a chance.
You know who? Somebody should just pick up the phone right now. Like, right, if the Bengals should just trade for Spencer Rattler right now and just see how it's going.
I mean, they probably should if they want to. I mean, a guy who can do a little something, try some stuff out. It's.
My brother brought this up to me on Saturday when we were hanging out, and I want to say somebody mentioned it in the Discord when Dave was in there yesterday, but I'm totally open to the idea of Roger Goodell pulling like a reverse David Stern and just coming in and being like, the Bengals need to trade for a quarterback. Like there's so many games that they're playing in prime time over the rest of the year. It's the football watching audience should not have to endure this. I don't even care about like where the Bengals finish in the standings, but they have enough primetime games. And just think about how many fantasy, and I know yesterday there was a decent amount of garbage time for Jamar Chase and even for T. Higgins, but think about how many fantasy teams across America are just dying on the vine because we're having to endure this Jake Browning experience. Like, how many more people would be engaged, invested, and happy with the NFL season if we just brought in Jameis to chuck it 55 times to the Bengals pass catchers. Like, I truly do think this would be for the greater good and that we should have a conversation about whether or not somebody should step in and make it happen.
We need a true slot machine quarterback. Whereas like Jake Browning really is not that because the good is not good enough for that to work. Whereas at least with Jameis, you might get enough like, that could be really fun. I also think there would be something to just having any fresh face in Cincinnati, which could be fun. Like I've been trying to get Tanner McKee a starting job for like 3 years now. They should be calling. I mean, just see what that looks like.
Here's the problem. Let me roll another fantasy football thing out there.
Okay.
There's always going to be somebody in your league that's like a real asshole to deal with when it comes to like trade negotiations, where you ask for something at a reasonable price and the guy's like, I want 10 times that. If the Bengals called the Eagles right now and asked for Tanner McKee,
Yeah.
how would be like, yeah, he's available. I want 2 twos.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
yeah,
it's probably not even worth picking up the phone to do that.
That's a good point. He's especially for another like in theory contender. He's probably like you don't get that. That's not happening.
Yeah, I would be very surprised if he was available at a price the Bengals were willing to pay. Jameis, I think that's a slightly different conversation. Like, I think that could be like a mid-round pick that in order to salvage both their season and the experience of the football watching public, it might be a price worth paying. And I'm more than comfortable with Roger Goodell pulling like a reverse Chris Paul situation here because I think a lot of us would benefit if somebody stepped in and did that. All right. It's Monday morning time. We every Sunday as the games are kind of winding down, we solicit your calls. If you had a tough Sunday, you're going through something, we are here to try to help you through it. And based on what Beller told me, there was no shortage of options last night because there was plenty of pain to be had across the NFL in week 5. Beller, what's our first one here? Well, let's try to help some people out.
Hey, Robert, it's Andrew from Baltimore, and I am calling about the abysmal Ravens. I am usually not a reactionary fan. I'm usually a very patient fan. I believe in stability. I think that John Harbaugh is a really good coach, but it's times that was embarrassing today. The team looked deflated. They looked lost. They looked undisciplined. They looked uninterested. They just didn't really seem to care. You could blame the injuries, but it wasn't the injuries out there today. They just looked lost. And unfortunately, I think the Harbaugh era should come to an end. I'm not sure if it will, but it feels like time. I mean, you could try and tweak the coordinators or whatever, but it starts at the top. And my heart breaks to say it, but time to hit the reset button in Baltimore.
I think that's a little hasty.
They were the best team in football like 8 months ago. Like
Yeah.
like I get it though.
I think if I were actually trying to bring the Ravens conversation to a logical but still painful place, I think it would go back to some of the things that I was saying before the season started. I think it was my what's keeping me up at night about the Ravens when we were doing the AFC North preview. And my answer to that was, has your best shot with this group already come and gone? And that's a scary thing to admit, but this is the reason that you say something like that. Last year, they were one of the healthiest teams we'd ever seen, according to adjusted games lost, right? Everything came up Ravens when it comes to the things that need to fall into place for you to win a championship. And they didn't do it. And so now, just based on luck and variance and all of those things that play into an NFL season, things are probably going to go worse for you this year. And instead of going slightly worse, this has become the team that is just having the season from hell. And so that's the tough place to be if you're a Ravens fan. I think the staff has done a good enough job for a long enough period of time. And I think that they've iterated and changed enough over that period of time that they deserve to see whatever the next step of this is through. I think when you are a team or you're a fan of a team that keeps getting close and keeps falling short and you want change, I think that viewpoint is more justified when the team keeps trying the same things over and over again and failing. Right? Like, I'd be more willing to hear that from a Bills fan based on how they construct and trot out their defense than I would with the Ravens, because the Ravens have consistently shown an ability to pivot when they start running into a wall on either side of the ball. And if you want to make the argument that it's the voice is falling on dead ears, and that's the biggest problem. I guess I can understand that if the effort continues to go this way, but they've been too good too recently for me to believe that everyone there is just checked out on John Harbaugh. So while this is extremely frustrating because now you're just going to sit there and look at the teams you had over the last couple years and lament the lost opportunity, I still feel like this team has done a good enough job evolving and problem solving over the last decade that this group deserves their shot to figure this out.
I agree. And wasting a year of Lamar Jackson playing at this level feels bad. And I totally get that, him in his prime, all that. But like this to me does feel like more like bad luck. And maybe there is some stuff with the Harbaugh era that is like, but even I don't believe it because like what you're saying with they've done such a good job of constantly iterating. That's why I don't feel like I think sometimes when a coach is there for 8, 10 years, things can start to get stale. But I've never felt that with Baltimore. It's always been they've changed to new types of coordinators, new offenses, obviously with bringing in Todd Monken. Like they've always been on the forefront of how do we want to change our personnel to refit this new team. Like they've even going all the way back to like the Joe Flacco era, they ran like 3 or 4 different kinds of offenses with him. Like they've just
And
always
defenses.
and defenses, yeah, like, they've just always done a good job of being on the spinning the wheel and making sure that we're moving things along, and so, this to me does not feel stale. This to me feels like maybe going into the year, they were a little bit more flawed than we thought in the trenches, and so that started some of this, and then you just 7 of your best players get hurt, and again, maybe some of that is falling on deaf ears now that I think probably know that they're not the team that they wanna be, but I don't know how many coaches in the league could really get when you are missing this many of your best players to really go and play their best ball.
I think this is good. I think trying to extricate the struggles they were having from the injuries is important because I don't want to just explain away what the first 5 weeks of the
Mhm.
Raven season have looked like based solely on injury. They could not run the ball on their own terms for the first 4 months. And the offensive line just was not playing at the same level it was last year. And I think it led to just an erratic feel to the offense overall. And I think you felt Lamar playing a lot more panicky than he did last year while playing at his best. And so you drop a game in Buffalo, you should lose or you should have won. And then you lose to a Chiefs team that is a good team, right? Like, so you lose to the Chiefs and the Lions. Those are the 2 games you lose. And then you give a game away against the Bills. So you probably should be 2-2. And then hopefully you can kind of figure out some of this stuff over the course of the year because you still have a lot of really good players, even if it's going to be a little bit of a journey. Well, now you start off 1-3 and you don't even give yourself a shot to figure it out because of all of the injuries. So the 1-3 start was not because they were hurt, but the 1-3 start puts you in such a hole that now the injuries completely derail the rest of your season. Like you don't even give yourself a chance to bounce back because you're so hurt. And so it's a lot, there's a lot of stuff going on. It's not just the guys that are injured, but the guys now being as injured as they are just completely robs you of the chance to solve these problems over the course of an entire season.
And the last thing I would say, with how successful the Harbaugh era has been and with how well that they've consistently moved this thing along, I would rather be a year late in firing him than a year early and like being a little bit reactionary. And so if they do this again next year and there's some sort of issue where they just can't put themselves together, fine. Then we can have that conversation. But like one kind of unlucky year given all of the equity that he's built up, I'm okay with how things are going.
Same. All right, Bo, what's our next one here?
Hey, Robert, and guys, dejected Cards fan here. I use the royal we. I've been a fan for forever, but like this meltdown was the most Cardinals thing ever. Like there's no way we're better than any team in the league, no matter what kind of a lead we have. They will always find a way to come back, whether it's like Carolina or the Titans. That puts us in like the bottom 10, right? Like you can be optimistic about talent and coaching and all of that, but if we can't ever like be ahead of the game and stay in front of stuff, I just don't know what to think as a Cards fan other than time to maybe think about moving on beyond Kyler Murray, try to think of maybe a new way to move on. I don't know.
If you think about, I'm asking you this, Derek. If you think about where this Cardinals team is right now, and if it continues at this pace until the end of the year, where do you think the biggest changes would need to happen? Like, do you think the roster is like deeply flawed in a way where it's like, okay, even the people in charge of putting this together, we should move on from them? Or do you feel like this is like a coaching and application issue more than it is a roster talent issue?
I I think this is a very unsatisfying answer, but it feels like a little bit of everything to me is just not quite up to their level. Like the roster building, I don't think is terrible, but I still come away very underwhelmed with all the offensive line issues. I think they didn't want to come out of this offseason not adding anyone else to the offense, but that's where they ended up. And I still think that that is something, if they really wanted to have changed, they could have, and they had the resources to do that. And then I think they add all this stuff on defense, and the defense is better, but this still does not feel to me like an ass-kicking unit that is maybe up to the level of what they've spent on it now. And so add that on top of like you have a what is supposed to be a defensive coach. Like I think they should be a little bit better on that side. And then again, we've done this 100 times with Kyler Murray, where we know how talented he is, we know what the best games look like, but you kind of still get too many of the lows for him and too much of the inconsistent games. And I think that that has been a little bit of an issue where I think I mentioned this on a show before. Teams often can rally around whatever their quarterback is or whatever their head coach is, and neither of them feel to me like they have a strong enough personality or holding in this league for this team to do that right now. And I think that that is kind of the issue.
Also, I mean, they're just so banged up in the secondary right now. And I
Right.
think you're really feeling that, which is a problem. The fact that Garrett Williams is hurt, the fact that Will Johnson has missed a couple games, Max Melton is now banged up. Like, I think you're really feeling the depth they've had to dig into, even before the season started. Like Starling Thomas is somebody who had played a ton of snaps for them at corner over the last couple of years. He's on IR, so he's going to miss the entire season. So the defense has not been at full strength, and so I think that's why maybe giving them a little bit of grace is worth it. Offensively, it's interesting because I think there were moments this year, and I think that the Walter Nolan, who again, he also hasn't played, the Walter Nolan and Will Johnson picks are indicative of a team that is trying to push itself over the line, right? Like we're gonna make moves that are a little bit riskier because we feel like we need to find these difference making players. We've built the floor of this team. Now let's raise the ceiling. So I think on that front, you saw a team that was willing to maybe compromise in the way that they were trying to build this thing in ways they weren't in earlier years. But at the same time, I think that they were really steadfast in their commitment to seeking out value when it came to adding pieces to the offense. We've talked about this. They didn't plan on not adding any guys to the offense. I think that's just kind of the way the offseason fell, where certain players at certain positions, whether it's interior offensive lineman, receiver, they just didn't feel like the price was worth it either in free agency or the draft. It's like, we're going to take Jordan Birch in the third round because we think Jordan Birch is a better player than the guys who are available here. And over a long period of time, thinking that way is probably going to benefit you. But that lack of urgency on offense left you with the same group of players, and then losing your offensive coordinator has really robbed the engine of what made this offense go when the personnel wasn't perfect over the last couple years. And so I think it's just a bunch of different stuff kind of contributing here to this team really being disappointing in what should have been the season where they really started to show us that they were ready to be competitive. And I just don't really know what to do with that, right? Like, I don't think that they've made like a ton of egregious mistakes when it comes to building the roster, but I think that the path they took this year and the consequences of that path have kind of been laid in front of us in a way that is just really underwhelming, right? Like you just watch the offense and it's just like, oh man, like every single fear we had about how this could go is unfortunately being realized right now.
And that's almost one of my like, we kind of joked about this, I think, on the preview show going in. Like, was there a world where they promoted Clayton Adams and let Petzing go and like this is all looks a little bit different and they actually are a much more put together offense? I don't know. And like should they have done that? Who knows? Like this just I
But how
think
do
to
you do
me
that? I mean,
that's the
Petson
thing.
put
Like it's
together
such
like
a
a top
weird
12 offense each of the last like 3 years. Like the
yeah.
staff overall had done a really good job on offense until this year. And I think that maybe you're just realizing like how important Clayton Adams was to that process.
And also just we've talked about stuff before of like when you're not adding anything. And I think this is especially true of offensive lines. Like you can just a couple of bad things don't go your way and offensive lines can get really stinky really fast. And I think that we've seen that a little bit with the Cardinals this year. And I think with Kyler Murray specifically, he is one of those quarterbacks that I think you want to protect him a little bit from himself in the sense of how do we get him cleaner down in distances so he doesn't feel like he has to be the throw the ball 45 times, run around and do crazy stuff all the time. I think that's how you get the inconsistency of him. Last year, they were obviously very good at that. this year they have not been so good at that. And I think you add that on top of a weird Marvin Harrison Jr. game, not really having that many secondary pass catchers. It's just they've struggled to find ground to stand on as an offense.
I think there will be changes for this team next year. I just don't know what those changes will or should look like. That's where I sit 5 weeks in. Like, is it a new quarterback? Is it a new coaching staff? Is it a new front office? Because if they fall short, I think that there are gonna be some hard questions that have to be answered. I just don't know what those answers should look like right now. I think that we'll gain a lot more information as the season continues to roll along.
Is it Spencer Rattler?
Beller had like one more that he wanted to throw in here before we get out. Beller, one more set of voicemails here before we finish this thing off.
My name's Peter from Scotland via New York, where I currently live. And I called last week during the emotional Dolphins game as a Jets fan and just thought, this is miserable. How can it get any worse? And then this week it got worse. And I think back often to when I tell US NFL fans that I'm an NFL fan and they're like, what team? And I'm like, the Jets. And the most common refrain I get is why. Really the first time in 15 years, more than that, 17 years, that I find myself also asking the question of like, why? Why do we do this to ourselves? Why, as Jets fans, are we here again? Like, again.
I'm a fucking Jets fan, unfortunately. This might be the new low for the Jets. For a team that I've suffered through for my entire fucking life of dealing with awful quarterback draft picks, awful coaching decisions, the worst owner in sports in North America. It goes on and on and on and on. But that loss to the Cowboys might be the worst out of all of them. They should fire everybody. Start the Keanu Reeves team.
So this fan wants just a replacements answer for the current state of the New York Jets. I try to see a little bit of the silver lining when we get these calls. I try to like put people in a decent headspace that are struggling in these moments. I have nothing for Jets fans. We talked about it yesterday. Like it is as bad as it looks. And I completely understand the level of frustration that you're feeling. Like, I think that you have to tap into just like some very basic things as a fan to get through whatever this is. Like, who do you watch the games with? Do you watch them with friends? Do you watch them with family? Even the very act of like spending 3 hours engaged with something that has long meant something to you, like your personal history with it, all of that kind of stuff. Like, that's how deep we're having to dig with the Jets right now. And why I think I'm capable of offering like an empathetic and sympathetic voice here is that I've had to do this as well. Like, there have been stretches as a Chicago Bears fan over the last like 5 or so years where you're sitting there wondering like, why do we do this to ourselves? And sometimes you have to reach far, far back for one of those answers, but you'll probably find one if you do that. And so I'm not going to pretend that this is not awful and that it's not worth being completely despondent right now if you root for this team, because like we said last night, this was supposed to feel different, but there's an answer somewhere. I think you just got to go back and try to find it.
I think it's hard. Like, I think what's so frustrating about it too is not that the offense is good, but they at least have their moments in the way that you thought they might. And that was probably the side of the ball you didn't have that much faith in. The defense being as bad as it is when you hire Aaron Glenn, who did such a good job with Detroit, you think, okay, if we shake up the defense again, surely we'll get our DBs to tackle and surely everyone will be in the right area. And they just, none of that. And I think you saw that exposed against the Cowboys more than any other team. I mean, right now on an EPA per play basis, the only defenses worse than the Jets are the Dallas Cowboys, which we've seen what Russell Wilson and Caleb Williams and all these other teams did to them. They're a fake defense. The Miami Dolphins, who have not been very good, and the Baltimore Ravens, who have like 3 of their players. And even with all those other teams, from a pure like overall watching how this team feels perspective, until last week, you had at least Lamar Jackson was playing quarterback for the Baltimore Ravens. The Dolphins are a weird team, but they have some fun players on offense that can score points. And Dak is playing like a top 10 quarterback again. Like, there's at least something to tune in for. When the Jets have the ball, you're hoping Justin Fields makes one cool play, and that's it.
Yeah, listen, there's not a lot right now. There's not a lot of bright spots to be found, but I wish I had something cheerier to say to Jets fans after the first 5 weeks. I unfortunately do not. All right, that's all we've got for today. Got another full slate coming your guys' way this week. If you're listening to this on Tuesday, our Monday Night Football recap will be available in your YouTube feed right now. I encourage you guys to go check that out. Chiefs-Jags should be a good one. Looking forward to that conversation. For now, that's all we got. Appreciate you guys listening. We'll talk to you very soon. Thanks for watching. Follow The Athletic Football Show wherever you get your podcasts. And don't forget to subscribe on YouTube.